This week on The Watchman, we are taking you back, all the way back to the first temple period, to the time of King Solomon's temple, for an inside look at the largest archaeological dig in all of Jerusalem. We are at the city of David, ancient Jerusalem, and today the Bible will come alive before your very eyes right here on The Watchman, only with Kufi and only on TBN. And welcome to The Watchman. We are standing in one of my very favorite places in all of Israel, and that is saying something, folks. This is the city of David, ancient Jerusalem, in particular, the Givati parking lot excavation site. Believe it or not, where I'm standing right now was once the site of a parking lot. That's right, folks. Cars and trucks were parked right here, but a few years ago, Israeli archaeologists made some amazing discoveries here at this Givati parking lot, which is a parking lot no more. What it is the largest excavation site in all of Jerusalem right now. Folks, our team here at Christians United for Israel wants to bring you the history of the land of Israel. The Bible says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." Today you will be informed, because remember, before America was in Washington, D.C., before the Brits were in London, before the French were in Paris, the Jewish people were right here in Jerusalem. We're taking it all the way back today, the ancient history of Jerusalem from the city of David. Take a look. Jamie, great to have you with us today here on The Watchman.
Great being with you.
Yeah, here in Jerusalem, my favorite place in the world, and we are actually at the most excavated site in all of Jerusalem. That's saying something. Jamie, this is the Givati parking lot dig, but this wasn't always an archaeological site. What was here before it, and how do we get to this amazing place that we're at right now?
So actually, up until the year 2007, this area is a parking lot, the largest parking lot here in the region, just outside the Western Wall, because above our heads is Temple Mount. Coming over here, hundreds and thousands of people visiting the Western Wall, tourists parking their cars and their buses right over here. So 2007, we would come over here, would purchase this parking lot over here, X-ray this area, finding a multiple layer hill. Where we are in the region, the Middle East, which is Syria, Lebanon, Israel these days, we would have tells. What is a tell? A tell is a multiple layer artificial hill, meaning hundreds and thousands of years ago, you would build a city in a certain area, a strategic area, say in a very important junction, okay? You'd build that city when empires come here to the region, and I just want to remind everybody that Jerusalem was conquered over 40 times in history. Empires do not come to the region with chocolates and flowers. They will come with weapons, with fire. They will burn the city. And you would want to rebuild the city, to renovate the city. So what would you do? No bobcats, no tractors. Yeah. You would level the destruction and build from above. It would happen again. You would level that destruction and build from above, and that's how you get a multiple layer hill. The heart of Jerusalem would be First Temple era, when everything begins over here, from the years of Abraham, the patriarch. And after that, the years of Joshua, the son of Nun, and King David coming over here 3,000 years ago, capturing Jerusalem and turning it for the first time, the Jebusite city, into the capital of the 12 united tribes of Israel.
And the city of David, Jamie, is one of my favorite places in all of Israel, because every day, it seems, there's some new amazing discovery here.
Every day.
Every day.
We have at least 4 active digs going on these days, finding a numerous number of amazing artifacts, antiquities that help us understand the big picture, because finding fragments are like little pieces, small pieces of a puzzle, putting them all together and seeing the big picture.
I think this may be the most fascinating spot of this entire archaeological dig. the remains of a huge Roman villa. What are we seeing here?
You bet, but before we talk about what we see over here, let's just understand what era we're talking about. We're under the Byzantine era, which we find the late Roman era. This is like something in between 2nd and 3rd century BCE. What we find over here are remains of a massive villa, the largest Roman villa, an Ionic Pristilic garden that we find over here, remains of them. What is it actually all about? So actually, if we look towards that area, heading south, we can see those remains of multiple rooms just aside of us, and a stillabat right over here. Okay. These are basic of capitals, of pillars that were built over here.
This is amazing. You can see the pillars.
This is a classic way of building a Pristilic Ionic Roman garden up until today.
This just screams Rome and Roman Empire.
It does, it does. Actually, we find over here a lot of artifacts that will explain to us what was going on here during the Roman era. We do know that after the destruction, or you know what, during the destruction of the Second Temple, we know the legion who destroyed Jerusalem with Titus, the general of the Roman forces coming into Jerusalem.
AD 70, probably the most famous destruction of Jerusalem.
You bet. We know that it was the 10th Roman Legion, Fretensis. And what do we find over here? We know that they camped in Jerusalem, that 10th Legion, and they built a lot of structures. They also had a factory for roof tiles. We find over here, in the destruction of this villa, a multiple number of these tiles.
Right here.
Roof tiles.
Wow.
You can see it says Lex, which is the 10th Legion. That's their symbol.
Wow.
All this villa was covered with those roof tiles built by the Roman Legion.
When you say a villa, just so people at home know what you're talking about, what is a villa? What is a Roman villa?
A Roman villa would be a compound belonging to a noble or to an important individual from the Roman Empire. That's what we're talking about. Beautiful, well-designed, well-built.
So some high-ranking Roman officials very likely tread this ground where we're standing right now during that period.
For sure, because the other or the second largest Roman villa we find in Israel, in the land of Israel these days, is actually in Sepphoris.
Okay.
And that's how we're able to compare different compounds and different structures that look alike and date the exact years. I would like to share with you the findings, different findings, artifacts, antiquities that are found over here. One of them, just underneath this pillar, right where you're standing, Eric, we found this beautiful Roman golden earring. This golden earring is solid gold, a real pearl, just shows us how beautiful, how magnificent this area and this place and the life over here actually looks like. We have to try and imagine standing in the remains of this massive Roman villa, what it looked like, because we had mosaics over here, we had pillars, we had capitals from above, we had beautiful roofs with beautiful roof tiles everywhere, a garden, things growing everywhere. This is exactly how it looked like.
And this is high class, I guess you would say, these gold earrings.
You bet, no doubt about that. This is a high official living over here, a beautiful and impressive Roman villa. We actually find that the place had a second story to it, a second floor. You can see how wide the walls are. How do we know it had a second floor? Because we find arches and pillars, remains of them. Digging over here, Doron Ben-Ami, the archaeologist, and Yana Chehanovic found inside the structure that the second story collapsed inside and destroyed everything. We still want to try and understand how it happened. So what did they find? They found that all the pillars, all the columns were fallen in the exact same direction, which is a clear evidence, no doubt about that. It occurred from an earthquake. The latest coins that are found over here in this Roman villa are from the year 360.
And that was a major earthquake.
It was in the year 363. A major earthquake struck the land of Israel. I want to remind everybody that we are only 10 kilometers west from the Great Rift Valley. And the Great Rift Valley is a meeting between boards.
So there's a lot of seismic activity here in Israel.
There is. We have a tectonic movement, pressures under the earth, under the ground, which causes a lot of earthquakes. In an average of 100 years, we have a massive earthquake occurring in this area. And this is no doubt part of the destruction of that earthquake in the year 363. And again, that's exactly what we're doing. What are we doing? When we dig down over here, we're able to shake off the dust and find layer under layer under layer, understanding what occurred in this beautiful piece of land.
I don't think it can get much better. I didn't think it could get much better, Jamie, than the largest villa, the remains of the largest villa in all of Israel. But the Bible is really about to come to life at our next spot, First and Second Temple period.
Yes, it is.
Let's do it.
It's time to learn the truth about Israel. If you want to know the real story about Israel, then you need to watch Israel Through the Looking Glass, a movie that confronts the accusations against Israel with the reality on the ground. Witness with your own eyes and ears the contrast between Israel's accusers and the true stories you've never heard.
How far away are we now from Gaza?
From this point to the border, less than a mile.
28,000 rockets?
Rocket in 12 years.
Israeli Arabs have the same, by law, civic rights that any other citizen of the State of Israel has.
Call the number on your screen right now or visit the website and order your free DVD of Israel Through the Looking Glass.
This is what your teachers tell you, right? Teachers, yeah?
Israel needs you to know the truth because the truth is our greatest weapon. Find out what you need to know so you can stand up and speak out for Zion's sake. The DVD is absolutely free. Order right now.
We've seen the remains of the largest Roman villa in all of Israel, but apparently it's about to get even more interesting, if that's possible, here at the City of David. First, Second Temple period. Wow, going way back to the Bible. Tell us what we're seeing right now.
We have the Persians. The Persians did give the Jewish nation an autonomy over here. Not independence, but they did give them an autonomy, a religious autonomy to rebuild the temple. And that was sort of a new freedom coming in over here to Jerusalem. Having to have said that, what happens a few hundred years later? Well, in the year 332 BCE, a new empire will rise up in the world. A very young man, Alexander the Great, will capture Jerusalem, and he will do something that never happened over here in Jerusalem. He will turn the tradition and faith, believing in one God, monotheism. He will bring a new idea to the region, and that will be Hellenism. He Hellenized the city. And Hellenism, as we know, is also idolatry. It's also working on your body all the time, stadiums, gymnasiums, etc., etc.
Ancient Greece, that entire culture, Alexander tried to spread it to the ends of the earth, all the conquered areas, including right here in Jerusalem, where there's belief in only one God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
And that naturally brought into a clash between the Jews here in Jerusalem to the Greeks. If we jump forward to the 2nd century BCE, we have the Seleucid family or dynasty controlling Jerusalem, the region. And suddenly we hear of a new king. We rely on a certain book, the book of Maccabees, who tell us the story of what happens over here. Josephus, Flavius Josephus, is also another historian who records what happens over here. By the way, he relies also in the book of Maccabees when he writes his book of Antiquities regarding what happens here in Jerusalem. So what do they tell us? They tell us about Antiochus. Antiochus IV Epiphanes, who will come to the region over here to Jerusalem. And he's in trouble. He's in trouble because we have a new empire arising here in the region, and that's the Roman Empire. And he has to deal with that. He will need a lot of means. That means money. And part of his campaign here in Jerusalem, he will go up to Temple Mount and he will rob the treasures that are up there on Temple Mount. And that naturally will begin another clash between the Jews here in Jerusalem and the Greek Empire, Antiochus IV.
Yeah, so Antiochus Epiphanes was being squeezed by the Romans. The Romans were rising, the Greek power was waning, but he was desperately trying to hang on from his base in Syria.
Where does he get into trouble? Where doesn't he get cooperation? Right over here in Jerusalem, because the Jews are not helping him. He tried to destroy, to demolish the Jewish nation from continuing. And how do you do that? Well, he passed on 3 laws, 3 main Hebrew biblical laws that the Jews kept, keeping the Sabbath, circumcision, and eating pure or kosher food. And he tried to prevent the Jews from keeping those laws.
And the Jews obviously did not go for that, to say the least.
That's exactly when we jump in to the story of the Maccabees, the Hasmonean dynasty.
Mariahu, the father of the 5 legendary brothers, the Maccabees, Judah, the hammer. And this went on, this war, this really, I call it, Jamie, one of the very first in history fights for religious freedom. It's no surprise that the founding fathers of the United States were profoundly influenced and inspired by the Maccabees.
Yes, and everybody talks about it up until today, and we celebrate it in Hanukkah.
Coming up, for years it was an immovable obstacle for the Maccabees. We get an up-close look at an infamous Greek stronghold after the break.
I've just returned from Washington, D.C., where I had the honor of meeting with the President and Vice President of the United States of America. God has given Christians United for Israel unprecedented favor with our national leaders, and I fully expect to see God use CUFI in a supernatural way to protect the state of Israel and the Jewish people in the years to come. We need every CUFI member to come to Washington, D.C. for the summit on July 17th and 18th. You can register right now for only $75 using the special discount code TOWNHALL. And our operators are standing by to assist you with making reservations. For Zion's sake, come to Washington, D.C. and help CUFI help the President defend Israel.
When Judah the Maccabee actually purifies the temple up on Temple Mount, we have an autonomy over here, a religious autonomy. But what we don't have is independence. And that's the story of Antiochus. But when he comes over here to Jerusalem in 167, raids over the city, he will build a fortress. It's mentioned in the book of Maccabees, chapter 1, book 1, chapter 1. It's mentioned that he built a citadel in the middle of Jerusalem to prevent the Jews living in the city of David, where we are, to go up to Temple Mount for freedom of worship. And that fortress is called the Chakra in Hebrew. The Chakra, the word Chakra, comes from the Greek word Akra, meaning Acropolis. You would build a stronghold, a fortress on the higher spot of the city to control the city. And that's exactly what he did. And what we're seeing just over here in the Givati parking lot excavations that are being held today, 2 years ago, Doron Ben-Ami, the leading archaeologist here in this site, actually claims that he found the remains of the Akra, of that stronghold of the Greek Empire built over here to prevent the Jews from going freely to Temple Mount and worshiping God.
Yeah, it was blocking them. It was an impediment to worshiping the Lord. And this was a scourge, a thorn in the side of the Maccabees, Jamie. That Akra, that fortress of the Maccabean, the Hasmonean revolt went on for decades, really. But that, man, it was really tough for them to seize that Akra fortress that was such a stronghold for the Greeks.
It was, this finding is phenomenal for one reason, because you ask every freshman that studies in university about Second Temple era, they begin studying, the first lesson that they talk about is where on earth are the findings or the remains of the Akra? Where was it built? What we have behind me is the beginning or the foundation of a defensive slope that was built towards the wall belonging to that stronghold. Look at these layers going down, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's numbered going all the way down, and that would be the foundation of that slope going all the way down at least 50 to 60 feet to the west. The interesting thing is, okay, so we date this slope and the walls and the towers that we find over here to the years of the Maccabees, or actually the Seleucid Empire. The amazing thing is that we hardly find, when I say we, I mean archaeologists and historians hardly find any Seleucid remains here in Jerusalem. It's an enigma. This is something that we've been looking for years. And on the remains of this defensive slope, we can see part of the destruction. Because as we continue reading the book of Maccabees, we know that Simon, in the year 143, sieged the Acra, sieged the fortress. 2 years later, he was able to capture that fortress and finally destroy it. And then, Eric, only then, we're able, or the Hasmoneans are actually able, to declare Jerusalem the capital of the united land of Israel. That's the second time in history, only the second time in history, when we have independence here in Jerusalem. The first time are in the years of David, King David, and King Solomon, 70 years. The second time is in the year 141, 23rd of the 5th month of the Hebrew calendar. That's when Simon declares that Jerusalem will be the capital, and that's when we have, for the second time in history, an independent state here in Jerusalem. When an archaeologist finds a layer of destruction, I promise you, you can recognize a layer of destruction. In that destruction, we found coins belonging or with a portrait of Antiochus Epiphanes IV. Continuing to Antiochus VII, it matches the exact dating of the Acra, the fortress of Jerusalem, the Greek one that prevented the Jews going up to the temple and worship. So we've got no doubt what we found over here. This is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. In the Davidic period, under David, Solomon, the Jewish people had full sovereignty over Israel. Jerusalem was the capital. Then again, during the Hasmonean period, the Maccabees, Simon declared once again the state of Israel, Jerusalem the capital. When is the third time that happened? Only the third time in history that the Jewish people had full sovereignty over Israel and Jerusalem.
Well, how can we forget? The date is 14th of May, 1948, when David Ben-Gurion, our first prime minister, declares and establishes for the third time the state of Israel. And he will declare that Jerusalem will be the eternal capital of the state of Israel. We're back.
Yeah, we live in interesting times, my friend. Bible times, prophetic times, I would say. We're going to look at some of the roots of those prophecies, those ancient prophecies from the First Temple period right now.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
It's time to learn the truth about Israel. If you want to know the real story about Israel, then you need to watch Israel Through the Looking Glass, a movie that confronts the accusations against Israel with the reality on the ground. Witness with your own eyes and ears the contrast between Israel's accusers and the true stories you've never heard.
How far away are we now from Gaza?
From this point to the border, less than a mile.
28,000 rockets?
Rocket in 12 years.
Israeli Arabs have the same, by law, civic rights that any other citizen of the state of Israel has.
Call the number on your screen right now or visit the website and order your free DVD of Israel Through the Looking Glass.
This is what your teachers tell you, right? Teachers, yeah?
Israel needs you to know the truth because the truth is our greatest weapon. Find out what you need to know so you can stand up and speak out for Zion's sake. The DVD is absolutely free. Order right now.
This is the heart. This is where everything begins. First Temple era, let's just remind our viewers, what are the years we're talking about? It begins 3,000 years ago, the years 1000 BCE, when King David will come into Jerusalem according to the book of Samuel and capture the city, turning it into the capital of the 12 united tribes of Israel, and it will end in the year 586 BCE, when the Babylonian Empire will come into the region, destroy the temple, burn the city, and exile everybody out of here to Babylonia. But something very interesting happens in between. And what's that? It's the story of the Assyrian Empire. Sanherib will come in over here to the region after demolishing the Israeli kingdom up north all the way in the year 725 BCE.
Carted away the 12 tribes, the 10 lost tribes.
The 10 lost tribes. The next station that the Assyrian Empire will have will be over here in Judea. They will come into Jerusalem the year 701, according to the book of Chronicles.
It's all in there.
It's
This
all
is the
over
Bible, the Old Testament coming to life, and we're standing right here.
This is it. And the book of Isaiah as well. We know that Hezekiah takes action. What does he do? He expands the city from the city of David, from the borders of the city of David, all the way up west over there to Mount Zion. We're able to see remains of that ancient wall built by Hezekiah, mentioned in the book of Chronicles, 2 Chronicles, and in the Jewish quarter. Finding housing over here dating to the years of Hezekiah, 701 BCE, we have no doubt how and where to the city expanded. That's what we're doing. Again, shaking off the dust and revealing those hidden secrets of this beautiful golden city, Jerusalem.
Thank you so much. This was phenomenal. The Givati parking lot. Who would have thought a parking lot where trucks and cars were parking above for so many years was a treasure trove, man, of the history of Israel. Jamie, thank you so much. We'll do it again soon.
Thank you.
From the city of David. Thank you. Thanks again to our incredible tour guide, Jamie Elgrod. Check out Jamie on Facebook to set up a tour here in Jerusalem. He is great. And what a great day we had here today, folks, in God's city. Yes, the people of Israel live never to be uprooted again. And our team here at Christians United for Israel encourages you to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We're not asking you, that's a mandate from God Almighty. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Those who love this great city will prosper. The Bible is very clear about that. And join our team here, our movement at Christians United for Israel, America's largest pro-Israel organization. Imagine that. 3.3 million members across the United States, growing every day, speaking out, being bold, taking a stand for Zion's sake for such a time as this. Well, thanks for joining us this week on a very special edition of The Watchman from the city of David, the largest excavation site in all of Jerusalem. Until next time, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.